Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Ken. I hope you had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. I'm Ken Biberaj, a managing director with Savills, a leading tenant advisory commercial real estate firm. We are in week 26 of social distancing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the news today, Bob Woodward has a new book where he claims the president intentionally played down the coronavirus to reduce panic. And New York City announced indoor dining will commence September 30th at 25% capacity. Today's topic is the safe return to campus, and we are thrilled to be joined by the new president of George Mason University, Dr. Gregory Washington. President Washington, great to see you.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Well, there's no shortage of things to talk to you about, but what I was most fascinated about with your background is that you had this incredibly unique position before coming to Mason in February. And let's see, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the dean of public health, racial reconciliation, and economics before you came to Mason, right? Like you're prepared for all of this, right? That was your background?
That's a good one. I was the exact opposite of that. I ran an engineering program, and I was dean of
the engineering.
School. I thought
it was pandemic preparation.
Engineers are problem solvers, and that has served me well because I have been dealt nothing but problems since starting the position. So it is.
Well, look, congratulations. I know we're thrilled, obviously, being here in Northern Virginia, that someone like you has taken this position. And let's start with just how the last 6 months have gone for you and your team with the transition before we dive into everything else. I mean, obviously, you're throwing a million curveballs right out the gate, but walk us through it. Like, what has this transition been for you personally, coming from the West Coast over here and kind of immersing yourself in all these challenges? I mean, probably more than you signed up for, I bet.
Well, look, if it were just the weather, if that was the only thing I'd have to deal with, it'd be okay. I've actually spent time in both in Virginia and in North Carolina. I did my graduate degree work was at NC State, and I did a little work at NASA Langley. So I got to spend some time here in Virginia. I knew what the summers and the humidity was all about. To be honest with you, I was not prepared for the rain.
Yeah, a lot of rain.
So I had someone tell me this morning, hey, we're 9 inches above normal for our, for this state. And I'm like, man, 9 to 10 inches is about all the rain we got in Southern California in a whole year, and that's your delta? Okay, I see the difference. Okay,
so lots of rain, but obviously, look, you come in, and how has your summer been going? I mean, obviously, let's talk about return to campus. I mean, walk us through that cadence of decision making. Obviously, it's been tough for universities and colleges across the country to decide whether to go virtual, whether to go in person, and you've really kind of led the charge here with a safe effort to return physically to campus. So walk us through that.
So look, fundamentally, it's kind of like a Faustian bargain. You're going to have some challenges with whatever decision you make, right? If you make a decision to stay fully online, there are some real budget challenges there. A good third to a half of the staff of a university are all predicated on people being on campus, where they're actually to serve the students in the faculty. So what do you do with all of those people? Now, some institutions have big endowments, or they have the ability to continue to carry those people's salary over a long period of time, and they make a decision based on that. Other institutions don't have that amount of cushion, and they don't have that amount of reserves, and so those institutions, and by and large, made a case to either go fully online or to do a partial hybrid approach. And we're kind of in the latter. And for me, it was more to it than just the fiscal side. Look, fundamentally, we're going to have to figure out how to deal with the virus. Think about it this way. I'm an engineer, and we look at things sequentially. Let's suppose for a minute that we have a vaccine, as the president has suggested, before the November election. And there's a vaccine that comes. Well, if that vaccine is approved by then, it has to be manufactured. It has to be distributed, right? And nothing happens in this country, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Very little, right? People are off, they're with their families. At best, you're talking early, to late spring by the time people start getting, the broader public gets shots in arms. We were going to be dealing with this for the rest of this academic year, right? I mean, our students end in May. So look, we're going to have to figure out how to manage and deal with the virus. And that's what universities do. Look, fundamentally, our individuals are given the luxury and paid to think. They're paid to problem solve. And this is a problem. Yeah. So it makes sense that universities be the crucibles of coming up with the solutions that can then guide and lead the country forward. So we can't run from that, right? That is kind of our mantle. That's kind of our responsibility in our society. And so we said, look, we're going to figure out how to do this as safe as possible. We're going to bring in a limited number of individuals and students, and we're going to try everything we can in order to keep people safe, right? And we were very aggressive. We have more different types of programs than just about any institution out there, and it's paid off for us. I mean, we've had some cases. I think we're sitting around 25, 26 cases now. But compared to our peers, people don't realize we're 38,000 students. We're the largest institution in Virginia. And to sit with 26 cases after having students on campus since early August. August 9th or so is when we started bringing students back. That's a good, I'll take those odds. We've managed to do this in a relatively safe way.
Right. And so what does that include just at a high level, right? Testing, masks, distancing?
We did. So obviously the hygiene and the masking are clear.
Everybody should.
But we did free testing. We tested every student before they even set foot on campus.
And you mailed testing kits, right? Was that the kind of?
We mailed testing kits.
Beautiful.
And look, none of this was without controversy. It was controversy in that. But now we know that it worked, right? And at some point, that was those institutions that didn't pre-test paid for it, right? Because we were able to stop a handful of cases from even settling in on our campus. And in doing that, we stopped the spread early, right? So we pre-tested. We have a rigorous diagnostic testing and prevalence testing program, surveillance testing program on campus. And so there's an ongoing, between 5 and 10% of our student population are tested every single day. And every week. And then in addition to that, we're testing faculty and staff on an ongoing basis.
Nice.
And those are just
random, regular testing.
And those are people who have no symptoms. 100% of those individuals who show up with symptoms get tested, right? And so, and then you in addition to that, we got robotic food delivery.
I've seen. It's very innovative.
Yeah, when our students, so they don't have to interact with individuals who deliver their food. Yeah. We have, we've developed all sorts of mechanisms to limit congregate activity of our students. The big killer for institutions have been parties. Students have come back and they've had these big parties. And so the idea is, if we can figure out ways to provide avenues for them to congregate and then really limit the students doing it themselves, we could probably do this safer. That was our gambit. And that's
why we have all this rain, Dr. Washington.
Yeah, it is what it is. But so what we did, here's an interesting one. We did a huge drive-in movie.
That's
right. We took one of our large parking lots and set it up for drive-in, so students can come in and they can watch movies and they can sit in their car. It didn't matter if it rained, you know, and they could effectively socially distance doing that. So we've come up with lots of strategies. We've held events. We had Tiffany Haddish come and engage our students virtually, which was interesting. Everything was going well with Tiffany until she started talking about, you know, the different ways in which she had sex. When that happened, oh my God, I students, yeah, you know. But you know, look, it was. We have tried so many different things, and I tell my people all the time, there is no silver bullet. There is no silver bullet, okay, to solve this thing. But there is silver buckshot, right? You throw a lot of things at it. The idea is that none of them works perfectly, but they all work a little bit better than not having put that strategy in place. And then you can come out with a series of outcomes that lead to much lower cases. Now, I'm knocking on wood, because today a group of students can go out and throw a massive party and really disrupt this. And our students they've been really good. They have sacrificed the congregate activity because they want to remain here and they want to be safe. And so, look, I got extraordinary staff that's working with us to put this together, and it's working well for us right now.
Excellent. Well, look, I mean, I'm sure this has happened to you and to many of our listeners. Sometimes you join an organization, or you come into an organization and maybe things aren't as strong as maybe you thought. From the outside, it seems like Mason's in a pretty incredible position, right? I think you had your largest class ever coming in right now, the most talked about innovation center under construction, I think, in the country, right? This is a real model of what people around the country are looking at when you think about economic development, connecting with the private sector and public institutions. Tell us about that. Like, where is Mason today, and where do you see yourself making an imprint in the future? And what would you like to prioritize or have your legacy be about?
Well, we have brought in our largest class ever. Not just largest, but largest and most
diverse. Yeah.
Right. And we are the most diverse institution in Virginia, and one of the most diverse in the whole country. We are what some would call there is no clear majority at George Mason. There's no entity, there's no racial or ethnic group with more than 50% of the population. And that means we're more diverse here in Northern Virginia than Washington, D.C., just to put it in perspective, so that you understand what we're dealing with here. And look, we intend to continue to grow in that framework. We like that diversity. We're a place where you can have an Anton Scalia Law School on one end of the spectrum, and you can have a Jimmy Carter school on the other, and both can coexist on our campus, and both can have individuals who can feel comfortable engaging with those entities. That's the great thing about Mason. Where are we going in the future? We're going towards more of that. We just put in a huge task force, more than 100 people, focused on dealing with the racial inequity issues on campus. Even though our campus has done better than most, right? Our degree attainment is fairly constant amongst the races. So we don't just bring students here, but we actually graduate them, and we graduate them in similar bands, right? You don't have, you're bringing lots of African-American students and then, only 30% of them are graduating. No, we bring them here and we graduate them. And so our plan is to continue to expand it, to be a thought leader in how you do these things correctly. It's interesting. I'm surprised at how many people around the country, you're here in Northern Virginia, obviously, but how many people around the country don't know of what's happening here? It was because of my work on racial inequity and racial diversity that I was doing nationally that individuals from here said, you need to take a look at this institution. We need a president. And we think you're the kind of person that can come in and continue us on the trajectory that we've started. And I didn't know much about the institution then. And so, you know, thought leadership is a big deal for us. There is a very great story happening here. I plan to continue that story, and I also plan to enhance it. But we got a challenge, a real big one in front of us. Look, next year at this time, you will not be talking about COVID. You will be talking about jobs. Yeah. And the reason is because we're going through a tremendous disruption now. Whole new areas of endeavor were already, areas of work were already being created, and other areas were being reduced. That has now accelerated due to COVID. Yeah. And we're going to have significant hundreds of thousands of people in this region who are unemployed and unemployable. And academic institutions are going to have to position themselves to upskill, reskill, re-educate, and retrain those individuals to the jobs of the future. And so, look, when the ATM was invented, you know, you heard talk, and I was a student at that time. You heard talk that this means the end of the bank teller, right? The tellers are going to go away because you can do it automatically. Well, do you know we have more bank tellers in the country now than we did before the ATM was invented? Yeah. And that's an interesting thing about technology. Technology doesn't always eliminate, it morphs, transforms, and creates as well. So why do we have more tellers? Well, each bank branch has fewer tellers in it because you have an ATM, but you brought the overall cost of operating a bank down, right? And it wasn't just the ATM, it was other technologies that infused in banks as well, brought the price of a single branch down. So what did banks do? They opened more branches. And so as they opened more branches and got more coverage, guess what? You now have many more tellers than we had before. And I can give you countless examples of this. We got more horses in the country now than we had in 1902, before the invention of the automobile. Same, and we could talk about the instances there.
But I think you also have more office space, even with Zoom in the future. Like, people are still going to want to work.
This is exactly right.
Collaborate.
But the work will be different. And guess what? Somebody has to develop the next generation of Zoom. Someone has to, you know, look, I'm communicating to you right now through a box, right? There are different social clues. Somebody has to educate us on how to connect to those. So these are social, these aren't just technical problems, they're social ones too, right?
Sure.
Everything that we're doing now can be recorded and digitized. It lasts forever. So when someone says something about you that's incorrect, or you're bullied, that piece of information lasts for all eternity now because it's digitized. And so that has a different effect on people. We need people to study that. So the idea here is that we're transforming as a globe, we're transforming as a country. Universities are central to that. And George Mason is one of the best equipped universities to lead the country forward in this framework. So
and I think
it's a really exciting time.
And I'm sure you've, if you haven't, or you will likely, but Victor Hoskins, who runs our Fairfax Economic Development Authority, I mean, Victor had an interesting kind of a narrative when I talked to him recently. You know, when he was in DC government had a lot of real estate. They just needed developers to build on it, right? And then when he was in Arlington, they had a ton of office buildings, but they needed the tenants. And now here in Fairfax County, what he recognizes is you have a lot of corporate headquarters, a lot of businesses, a lot of real estate. You need the talent. Everybody has job openings. So how do you look down the pipe about building that workforce, educating it, and being nimble about evolving needs, whether they're in engineering or in cloud computing or in cybersecurity? I mean, usually public institutions aren't as quick to react. So how do you kind of put your engineering hat on, your president hat on, and kind of be responsive in a way that meets this future need post-COVID?
So here's the interesting part. I'm working with Victor as we speak. It's very interesting. I just completed an email to him just before getting on this call. Look, we're going to be nimble. We have to. And not only that, we're the largest institution in Virginia because we've been responsible for supplying a lot of that need to companies in this region.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to continue to figure out ways to grow and partnerships to put in place in order to do that. And, you know, and what does that mean for us? We are expanding and developing partnerships with community colleges and with high schools, right? Because you got to get the pipeline right if we're going to be able to produce on the back end. The population in Northern Virginia is now starting to plateau. So if we're going to continue to grow, we're going to have to be much more innovative and creative than we've ever been in terms of attracting students and bringing those students into Mason. The goal is still to get to a student body of around 50,000. And we're going to need every one of those students if we're going to be able to meet the need of the companies in the region. And even with that number, we still might not get there. And so, in an aggressive stance, I don't want to scare people too much, but there's no reason why this institution can't be 60 or 70,000 students. The community dictates an institution of that size and that need, and we just have to be innovative enough to get us there.
So before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about the social unrest, the racial issues we're dealing with across the country. You're the first Black president Mason's ever had. How do you see yourself, your role, and what Mason should be doing to engage student population and the broader community on these tough issues?
Well, look, fundamentally, this is an issue where I can't be a follower. Right? We're gonna. Mason has always did many of the right things in this area, and that's why the institution is so diverse now. We're going to have to do it in spades going forward. There is a real racial inequity challenge. It's not just the issues with George Floyd and the Ahmaud Arbery. Of course, those are significant issues. But there are economic issues. There are issues in the health space. This is systematic, right? And the way you deal with systematic type issues are you start with a series of small wins, and then you look at your total systems. That's what we're doing. We're looking at our institution with a task force of more than 100 people from top to bottom, and we're looking at rooting out vestiges of systematic and racism. And that's our plan. It sounds very simple. It sounds like a cliche, but fundamentally, it comes down to people doing the right thing when they see the wrong thing.
Yeah,
and doing the right thing when they see the wrong thing.
Yeah, and it is, to your point previously, COVID's just been an accelerant on this, right? So whether it's the public health issues, broadband technology issues, dropout rate issues, access to capital issues. So, I mean, it's certainly something I think that does require a task force.
But here's the interesting thing: COVID has, if it's done anything, it has shown us, it has brought to light how ingrained and systematic these challenges were. Right? When you see that we have individuals that struggle to get capital, that struggle that are disproportionately affected negatively relative to health. There is no aspect of living where certain groups aren't getting the short end of the stick. And it is becoming more and more clear as even at the university, in the university space. I saw some data yesterday that was just blew my mind. It showed that a Caucasian high school student, right, has a better chance relative to employment than an African American or Latino student with an associate's degree, right? And so that's the issue that we're struggling with right now, right? There is an achievement gap where the outcomes are things that we have to figure out how to manage. Right, and when you look at deltas like that, this is not about performance. Yeah. This is about one entity with an advanced degree out of college and one entity without one, and the job market still favors the entity who doesn't have the degree. And so we got work to do. It's just nowhere around it. And it's past time to stop talking about it and start working on it.
So last question for you. What would you hope for from the private sector in this region? What can business leaders be doing? How do you want to engage with them? How can they be a resource to the broader Mason community in your efforts? We have a lot of business, community members who tune in.
It is. Well, look, the reality of the situation is, for us, our mantra is partner or perish. We need partners to help us move forward as an institution. We have partnered with a lot of the larger companies in this area. We have a great partnership with Amazon. We got Microsoft coming. We got a partnership with them. Great partnership with Northrop and many of the other companies in this space. We need to grow those partnerships on mutually beneficial frameworks, meaning I'm not going to be the guy who comes to a company with his hand out and saying, what can you put in it? I'm going to come and extend my hand and say, how can we work together to benefit the community, where you get a benefit and our students get a benefit? That's my thought process.
I think that's great. Congratulations on this new amazing role and on getting so many of these young students back to campus safely. I think a lot of universities are going to be looking to you and your leadership as we try to kind of pave a way forward. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today for our conversation with Gregory Washington, the new president of George Mason University. Thanks for tuning in. We have an exciting set of guests coming up in the coming weeks, including the CEO of Teach for America, the Secretary of State of Michigan, and many others. In the meantime, remember, practice social distancing, wash your hands, and wear a mask. President Washington, great to have you, sir, and good luck with everything.
Great to be here. Go Patriots.
Go Patriots. And I'll get you a coffee mug to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, sir.
All right.